you get a charitable tax deduction. Help the United Breast Cancer Foundation save lives by donating your old car, SUV, or truck. Call now for free pickup. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. Call right now. That number again is 800-245-0823.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us. Our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com. Use promo code MATT, M-A-T-T, and get 15% off your purchase.
And we're going to pretend today I actually shared the post before the music started. Done. On my Facebook page. Woohoo! So, yes, for one time, Patrick Mosher, the Food Biz Pro, okay, chef. I like cooking, let's put it that way. I like to eat. Anyway, I finally got the video shared to my page in the first minute of the programming. Yes.
Nice job.
Dude, it's been a morning.
Hey, speaking of food.
Wait. Everybody, our VP of Sales, Tom, is in house today. Good morning, Tom.
Good afternoon.
It's always Monday morning. It's always Monday morning. So, yeah, speaking of food.
Great lasagna dinner last night.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can top that. I'm not sure.
And, I'm not a big lasagna fan. I was wowed, by the way.
That's right, because you did not grow up with lasagna. I remember that.
Never had lasagna in my house in 50 years.
Someone we knew wanted to make lasagna for Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, and you were like,
Spaghetti.
Which is funny because everybody thinks you're Italian. You're not. You're German and Irish.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we need to give a shout out to Valerie Sokolowski and her husband Doug. They hosted us for dinner last night. And this all started as a challenge. There was a kind of a gauntlet thrown down by Doc, actually.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a three-way competition to see whose lasagna was the best. And, we had a couple of tiny critiques for her lasagna, but I have to tell you, the sauce, the cheese ratio.
The sausage was phenomenal.
It really was. So I don't know. It was, did you notice that it wasn't like a cased sausage that had simply been sliced? It wasn't that.
Nope.
It wasn't loose bulk sausage that had just been cooked. I don't know what that was, but it was delicious.
Yes, it was.
She didn't tell us either.
No.
I said, great sausage. Uh-huh. She didn't offer anything more. And then we topped that off with, some fantastic wine, by the way. And we had, what was the bourbon? Balcones from right here in Texas.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep, the second oldest legal distillery in the state. And we had the Balcones, it was the blue corn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh. That was fantastic.
It was so smooth.
Yeah, Doug's a nice guy for sharing that. And then tiramisu for dessert.
It was fantastic.
If you don't like tiramisu, I'm sorry. You just got to go home now. Party's over. You're not invited. Well, it's not Spoony approved unless you like tiramisu. How's that?
There you go. I like that.
So if you haven't listened in lately, Tom comes in and asks me interesting questions about the food service business, why we do certain things, why we don't do others, and what the hell happened when I had this meal at this place. What were they thinking? So, Tom, you brought up a very interesting point last night. Yeah, do you remember what it was?
I do, as a matter of fact.
Okay,
so
good. I'm glad you do.
You go to a restaurant, right?
Uh-huh.
And you get greeted. Nice, big smile on your face. And then you get seated and waiter comes around and, can I get you a drink? And nice smile on his face. And then you have a nice dinner, a nice dessert. You get your check. And on the way home, you're thinking, what was the most important part of that evening? And so the question interpreted to you, Chef, is who is the most important person or what is the most important person in a restaurant?
Yeah, and so it's interesting because
can we make some guesses first?
Yeah, I think that Doug was trying to trick me on this question last night, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, we can make some guesses because a lot of people might think it's okay. Who's the first person you see when you walk in the door?
It's the greeter.
Greeter,
they
hostess.
set the atmosphere for you.
Yeah, whether that ends up being the general manager, the shift manager, a server, it could be a bartender, but typically it's a hostess. They set the mood, and that was one of Doc's big pet peeves, right? Not having them take over your experience for you at the door. But that's wrong. So who else might it be?
Well, you would think it's the chef.
If the chef is the restaurant and the restaurant is owned by the chef proprietor, perhaps, maybe, but typically there are systems in the kitchen that allow for the restaurant to operate without a chef or a kitchen manager or whoever the person driving the food is. There should be fail-safe systems in place so that someone knows how to make everything in the kitchen. That's very important. That's part of not
the answer
failing.
either.
That's not the answer.
All right, so I have another guess. The bartender. Here's my problem. My pet peeve. The bartender is serving the people at the bar, but he's also serving the drinks for the people in the restaurant. And it takes 5, 10, 15 minutes to get a drink sometimes. Yeah. Now, I'm not an alcoholic, but I'm just saying you still like to get
I'm a highly functional alcoholic, so yes, I'd like to have my drink in a few minutes. 3 minutes.
Right.
3 minutes, folks.
Whatever the magic number is.
Especially if it's a glass of wine,
So
right?
is it the bartender?
No.
Okay.
No, although that bartenders can save restaurants a lot of hassle, right? If you schedule your bartenders correctly and you have a little additional coverage on the bar, if the drinks come out fast enough, it kind of unruffles a lot of feathers, right? Because what's the first thing that someone does in a bar? Well, a lot of states you can't do this. They're like, well, let me buy you a drink. The manager, if there's something goes wrong at the table, they'll say, let me buy an appetizer or dessert. But ideally, if you're a patron, you would love them to buy you a cocktail.
Sure.
Or let me take care of that. Your first drink's on the house, so let me just take care of that. But the bartender's not the most important person, although they are very important. But what if you don't serve alcohol? What if you have a restaurant that doesn't have a liquor license, so you don't have a bartender? Nope. Thanks for playing. Try again next week.
I'm out.
Nah, you're not out. One more. Come on.
One more?
Yeah.
My server.
Yeah, or the general manager, or, it could be the busser.
I have another good story about the general manager, but let's get to the answer.
Okay, so actually the answer is, are you ready? It's the dishwasher.
Why?
Well, so this is a multi-tiered answer, right? It's multi-level. It's very complex. It's like an onion. But on the surface of things, the simplest answer is that if there are no clean dishes, you can't serve any food.
Good point.
That's the gist of it. But that person is also responsible for probably the key component in food safety in a restaurant. So if you have a single dishwasher and they're handling both the dirty and the clean dishes, wash, then put away, then they have to ensure that they have clean hands every time they touch a dish on the clean side of things, and that when they are taking things out to the floor, that they have a clean apron on every time. Like you see people carrying things across trays across the room, and they have an apron on, and if that like the rack for glassware is touching their apron, chances are that the apron's wet and the bacteria is going to get on it's a very very hard thing to do with one dishwasher. So you might have a clean guy, a dirty guy, and they just they play their independent roles. But above beyond that, if they walk out, that is the biggest headache for a general manager, a chef, kitchen manager, because you know who gets to wash the dishes?
The chef?
Well, it could be the lowest line cook, but then you know what the chef gets to do? He gets to take that job, or he gets to push everybody down the line one, and you get to take somebody else's job on the line. It's a huge frustration, and they're very difficult to keep hold of. I told you a story last night about Chewy's restaurant, which is a great chain based out of Austin, right?
Yes.
Austin, yeah. They have a restaurant in Northwest Arkansas, in Rogers, which, it's just an easy place to talk about because I know a lot about the area. They start their dishwashers out, and get this, in this very slightly, when it comes to blue collar, it's a slightly depressed area as far as income goes. What do you think? Minimum wage now is what, $8, $9? I don't know.
11.
Is it?
I don't know. I'm saying that's what they pay. 11.
15 to 18.
15 to 18
to start. This is Chewy's. This isn't Ruth Chris. This isn't what's another big steakhouse? It's not Fleming's.
Mm-hmm.
This is Chewy's. but they're smart because they don't want to lose that player. And the lower turnover you have, the better. Doug brought up, was it Doug that brought this up last night, Mr. Sokolowski? Oh, maybe it was Valerie, that restaurants have one of the highest turnover rates. Actually, they probably have the highest turnover rate. If I could look at any business, that's the number one problem that restaurants face. Like 1.2 million dining facilities in this country. 1.2 million. That's crazy. I mean, how many restaurants do you need per capita? You think about it, that's one restaurant for every 270 people, 290 people. I mean, really? So how do you survive on that? If you have one restaurant for every 290 people and you spread them out evenly and everybody had their proper ratio, then because you have bigger restaurants and smaller restaurants. So if you went the number of employees equal how many guests you should have or a portion to you, there's no way to survive. And that's why you see this kind of the labor shortage. You're seeing a lot of places open and close almost immediately. It's a very expensive business. So. But you had a story about a GM. What's that question? So, yes, the answer was dishwasher. If you got it right, send your answer in to info@spoony.com. We will send you back nothing today. Maybe next week. We'll put it out.
Put you on the list.
Well, yeah, yes. Actually, go to spoony.com, register, and then you get updates. We are going to start posing a question on Mondays, and we'll start reading the answers back on Friday. And we will pick one person each week for a little prize. Who knows what it'll be? Yep, I have ring pops. See, ring pops are awesome. I've never had one.
I haven't had one.
I'm going to eat one of these on the air. Never had one.
After I leave.
Oh, come on. Do you want to see me? Come on. I won't put it on my finger. All right. So So it's been a long day today already, Tom. It's been a good day, though, because we have people, the folks from Nostalgia Rice, SpoonyWildRice.com. Jay and Lori are in-house. We've been creating food and dishes for each show as we go along through the day. What did we do on the first show? We did
bagels
and their spreads. Man, they have that whipped honey.
Yep.
With hazelnut in it. Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. And then they have the beer jellies, and then they have the pepper jam, and they have they have everything.
Before you say too much, I think I can get Lori and Jay to come in here a little later during your show.
Really? Yeah, we may have been working on that for a while. But yeah. Actually, so then we did the Savory Southwest salad for Matt because he doesn't eat desserts, doesn't like sweets, and actually we served it as like a salsa for chips. That's fantastic, man. That's a meal in itself. And now we have a little dessert coming out here pretty soon. Kind of a semi-savory sweet dessert. We'll talk. We'll show it and try it with everybody on the air here in a little bit. So, all right. I wonon't cut you off again, Tom.
That's okay.
Dude, I got work to do.
So Terry and I were at dinner recently, and a pretty well-known restaurant. They're around the country. Anyway, we ordered an appetizer, which was shrimp and chicken wrapped with bacon.
Okay. Yeah.
And
what do they call it? Shrimp Diablo or whatever. Angels on horseback.
But, to hold that bacon on there, they put that toothpick in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So one of ours had the toothpick broke, so there's only half a piece of toothpick in there. So we called it to the attention of the waiter, who immediately told the GM, who immediately came over to the table within 3 minutes. And he, of course, comped us for that appetizer, and all things were good. So it continued the good experience.
Okay, so that's good, because a lot of times they're like, oh, I'm really sorry. I'll tell the kitchen. So that is good.
Well, they did say that part, but the GM came over right away.
And that right there, that one thing probably saved your entire experience.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't it wasn't necessarily the comping of the dish, although that's a nice thing to do, and that's the right thing to do. It's those little.
That's how they handled it.
Yeah,
and the immediacy of it.
And you said this is a nationwide chain of very nice restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume this doesn't happen very often because there was such a sense of urgency with the GM, and they showed up immediately. So kudos to them, for squashing the problem.
Absolutely.
But was the toothpick all the way through it, or just halfway?
There was only half that we had in our mouth.
So that's something. That's an attention to detail thing in the kitchen. I don't even know where to go. There's so many things there.
Point was, kudos to them, like you said. They did it. They handled it.
Give them a shout.
In my mind,
give them a shout out. Tell them.
Saltgrass.
Okay, so Saltgrass. I know. So I know one of the guys who was who funded that. Not he didn't own them, but he helped fund them when they started, and a few other steakhouses prior to that. But yeah, they're managed very well, very, very well, and pretty good food too.
Excellent. We were very pleased.
Yeah. Was shrimp just in bacon, or to have jalapeno in there or anything, or was there a sauce?
There was a sauce, and it was more of a barbecue sauce, little honey barbecue. It was very good.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
You know that honey in sauces like honey mustard and things like that. People are like, honey mustard when done right, if it has enough acid in it and it has enough depth of flavor in the especially in the mustard, man, that is one of my all-time favorite sauces. I think it's underplayed. I'm gonna have to go. I haven't been to Saltgrass in a long time. I'm gonna go visit and just see how things go.
There's a couple right in the area.
Yeah, I know. It's I'd say it's a cash flow thing. Cash flow is not really the issue. It's more like cash retention. It flows right in, flows right out. It's the cash retention portion.
Yeah,
so
that's very true.
anything else going on? We got a lot going on.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot going on. We have some big stuff going on with potential video distribution. We have
client partners.
Yeah, we do. And we brought some great new shows on. Unfortunately, Randy White was supposed to launch today. And, there was kind of he had a super busy weekend. Of course, I was busy taking care of this, traveling there. And so there was some information missing, but he's going to launch next Monday because it's a good time to go. He's heading out of town next Wednesday to an event. It'll be a good time to get his first guest in, and then he'll give us an update from the road as he's traveling. But Randy White's he has a show called Into the Fire, which is going to be awesome because he's what he calls a live fire culinary explorer. No microwaves. Live fire. Gonna be cool. And then we're gonna launch on Wednesday. We're gonna launch like the I don't know what we call that, the Boys to Men hour or something. It's where 3-4 of us sit around here, pour ourselves a cocktail or a pop a top of.
You should get Doug to come in on that. Remember, he wants to do a drinking show.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a good idea.
He wants to come in anyway.
That's a really good idea. Tom has the most soothing voice. Tom's like Tom is the moderating uncle when there's a discrepancy among the cousins. Son, I've told you many times, you don't hit your sister in the head with a stick. No. What we do is we pat her on the back and we say, "All right, sister, I'm playing with the boys now. Why don't you come back later?" Tom is like, you are the least emotional of all of us, I think, publicly. And we have so much. I just wish we could talk about everything, but none of it's real till I see a signed piece of paper. When we get a check, then ta-da, we will say something.
So another observation is from a listener.
Did I something my teeth? Something stuck in my teeth?
No.
Okay, cool.
No. People observe that this table wobbles.
Dude, no, but you know how much I fixed this? This thing used to go like 6 inches each direction. You tighten this? It just twists on the base, right?
Yeah.
So we got then we got to keep going back the other way. It's like dun dun. Yeah. So, but that's about. Look, this is a 4-foot table with a 2-foot base on the bottom. So, and that's pretty good. Oh, that's actually better than it was. I'll do that in the break. So what we got to have something cool coming up this week. What do we have coming up?
So Easter's coming up in a few weeks. Are you planning an Easter show, like to tell people how to prepare some meals?
You know what? I might have to come in a bunny suit. The one from did you see the picture I took of Doc where he was dressing himself in that? So if anyone's ever seen A Christmas Story, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, Doc and I went to, I don't know, we would often torture ourselves late at night, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And when he would wake up at like 3:30, we would go to Walmart and shop for whatever, I don't, he always needed to get sriracha, man. He ate so much of that stuff by the gallon. But we went one night, and it was maybe a couple of weeks before Christmas. And they had these full-size jumpsuits. They had a couple. One had these little Christmas trees on it, and each Christmas tree had a little light. And when you flipped the switch in your pocket, they all sparkled. Now, that one was pretty cool. But there were a couple of others. The third one he put on is the pink bunny jumper, the pajamas from the little boy from A Christmas Story. The best part is, Doc, he really should have been an actor, not just a radio personality, but it takes him like 2 minutes to get on. Doc was 6'5", right? He was a big boy. He was not a thin boy. He wasn't fat, but he was big. And it took him a long time to kind of inch, and you see him, he's trying to inch it up his body like this. And I took live photos. So each photo is like a second and a half. And when he finally gets it on, he crosses his arms and he nods his head, like pouting, like just like the boy in the movie. And the ears they flop forward a few times. It's my favorite picture of him. Anyway, I'm going to post that here in a minute. He's missed, but I'll tell you, we have a ton of great memories, and better to have had him as long as we did than never. So, for sure. Hey, are you gonna make sure they're ready? Because we're doing. They're doing some
check out.
No, I know you at work too. Okay. Yeah, I'd like Tom to stay all day and just chat, but
always fun.
Oh, you know what? I failed to wasn't I supposed to make dinner last Thursday?
Yeah,
like roast chicken and porcini mashed potatoes, dude.
That's this Thursday. We changed it.
Woo! Good. Game on Thursday night. All right, we'll send you pictures if there's any left.
Peace out.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Tom. So yeah, it's interesting how the littlest details. Thanks, Tom. The littlest details make the biggest difference in the experience in a restaurant. So for Tom and Terry, the fact that the GM came over right away when they had an issue, but what most people don't understand is those what we would consider a minor player in the greater scheme of the restaurant industry. Those people are actually sometimes the most important. As I said, I believe that the dishwasher is the most important person as an individual in ensuring the. Let's make one correction. They're the most important person to ensure that the flow of the restaurant doesn't stop. Now, it doesn't mean that other people can't have responsibilities there as well, but if you lose a dishwasher and you have no clean dishes, you have no restaurant. You cannot serve food, and you have to shut down. So, and I'll tell you, it's just awful to have to 2/3 of the way through a shift on a Friday night jump in and start doing dishes, because a lot of times your line is in a rhythm and you don't want to stop that. So you put yourself in the dish pit. I've had to do it several times. It happens. Anyway. What do we got? So yeah, Lori and Jay are here from Nostalgia. That's going to be a great visit here in a few minutes. And I'm not really hungry, but I'm hungry for what we're making right now. And you know what, Patrick? You have to put that on mute when you start a watch party. All right, what else do we have here? Oh, you ever make pasta sauce at home? I have. Something interesting. Everybody I know that's Italian, a true Italian. Not like your nonna, your grandmother, not third generation, fourth generation American, but people from the old country. They always say the sauce is flat. It's flat. It's no flavor, right? So I did a little research, and apparently it's not the quality of the tomatoes or the tomato paste or the herbs. It's not the seasoning. The issue has been, and I did not. It's the ratio, and it's rather the amount of olive oil that you put into the sauce. Italians typically put 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil per serving. So if you're going to serve 2 people, you put 1/4 cup to 6 ounces of olive oil in that 1 quart of sauce. That's unbelievable to me. But then I started thinking back, and I was like, no, that kind of makes sense. One of my favorite dishes is a Sicilian style eggplant dish, right? And it's you take the eggplant and you cut the black, like I cut them off in squares. Like I cut the one side flat about maybe 1 inch deep, and just cut off the skin. You don't want any of the seed in there. The skin with some of the and the white flesh, and then I do that on all 4 sides. And you take those, and you want just the skin and the white flesh up to 1 inch thick. And then you cut those into kind of ribbons about 1/2 inch wide, and then you cut so you have basically the side looks like like the back of a whale sticking out of the water, right, along the cutting board. You cut that into strips, and then you cut those strips into 2-inch pieces, and then you saute those over really high heat with olive oil, and it's a lot of olive oil, but it because they soak it up, and it gets really it takes away the sponginess. Oh, it's so good. Once they brown, though, then you add tomatoes, cherry tomatoes halved, and it's about say if you have 2 cups of or 3 cups of the eggplant, then you put in about 2 cups of the halved cherry tomatoes, and then they'll start to. You don't want them to brown, so you almost immediately put in another 1/4 cup of olive oil, maybe 1/2 cup on that because. 2 cups, about 1/2 cup. And then some fresh basil. and some sliced garlic, and you just let that stew. And that's it. It's very simple. A little bit of salt in there, and then as the cherry tomatoes start to break down, they get really gooey. They get kind of sticky, and they get very flavorful. And the olive oil continues to soak into the eggplant that starts getting really flavorful. And you put a little more salt and a whole bunch of fresh basil right before you serve it. It's one of my all-time favorite dishes. When I think about the ratio of olive oil to actual food product in there, it's really heavy on the olive oil, but it's awesome. I mean, it tastes great. It doesn't. It's not overpowering. It's not overfilling. Anyway, one of my favorites. So, if your tomato sauces turn out quite right, your pasta sauce, double the olive oil. Try it. Seriously, 2 to 3 tablespoons per person. Hey, we'll be right back with Jay and Lori from Nostalgia Rice. We got a little bit of a dessert thing going on, made from wild rice, believe it or not. We'll be right back. Chef Patrick Mosher,
Follow
the
Chef
Food Biz
Patrick
Pro.
Mosher on Twitter at Food Biz
Have you
Pro.
done it? You catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror?
I'm one of those people you don't want to see naked.
Yeah, most of us. But I mean, you look and you're going, what the?
I know.
How did I get to whatever?
Yeah.
Oh, it's horrible. Hey there, it's Doc Thompson and Brad Staggs to tell you about a different way to shed those pounds. This is brand new tech. It's only been around for a couple of years or so. It was based on research from the University of California that said there's a molecule called OEA that's found naturally in your body. It produces it in the Mediterranean diet, that when taken in concentrated amounts, it will actually make you feel fuller and boost your metabolism.
I've lost about 10 pounds so far.
It's
using
amazing.
It
Now,
really is cool.
a company said, we can take this to market and make this great product that'll help you. It's called RidUZone, RIDU zone.com, RIDU zone.com. It's Brad's worked. It's worked for Brad's, worked for me, countless other people. Go to RidUZone.com and try today. You're going to love it. RidUZone.com. Remember that, RIDU zone.com.
Take the pain out of ordering your diabetic testing supplies with Diathrive. Diathrive ships the testing supplies you need directly to you when you need them. Best of all, with plans starting as low as $8 a month, Diathrive is probably going to cost you less than what you're paying today. Diathrive is so convinced that you'll love their service, they're offering your first month of supplies free. Simply type the code DOC, D-O-C, at checkout. Diathrive.com. That's D-I-A, thrive.com.
Are you tired of high cable TV rates? Sign up for Dish today and get a $500 bonus offer while supplies last. Plus, lock in your price for 2 years guaranteed. Call All American Dish, your Dish authorized retailer now.
800-570-6630. 800-570-6630. That's 800-570-6630. Offers require credit qualification, 24-month commitment, early termination fee, and e-auto pay. Restrictions apply. Call for details.
And we are back with, holy moly, Jay and Lori from Nostalgia Rice. Okay, I knew you were making this. This smells so much better than I even imagined. I'm gonna move this down here out of the way.
I got some before you did, Chefy.
I know. They said you came in and grabbed. Tom's like,
I already wolfed it down.
He's already had his in there.
Yeah, that's what he's
brilliant.
saying. Yeah, they
It's
don't have
brilliant.
He doesn't. So he's
I
saying
could do
it's
that for
brilliant.
breakfast.
He goes, Chef, I got some before you did. I could do this for breakfast. So the one time I tell people not to put the headphones on, I'm like, they should have had them on. Anyway, so believe it or not, these are waffles.
Yes.
Chocolate waffles, right?
Chocolate.
So a little bit closer.
Yep.
Chocolate waffles, one with banana, one with cinnamon.
Yes.
So we have chocolate banana waffles, chocolate cinnamon waffles,
Yes.
with a little bit of, I have to tell you, this Tillamook vanilla ice cream isn't even necessary because the waffles are so good. I can smell this, but man, I'm so hungry right now.
Yeah.
So which one do you have over there?
I believe I have banana.
Okay, and Jay, what?
banana.
And I have the chocolate with cinnamon.
Chocolate and cinnamon. Okay. Well, have you tried them yet?
No.
You didn't try them without me? Oh, you see, they don't care. They're like, dude, I got mine first. So I'm gonna try this one. I think that this is the one with cinnamon because I don't know. We'll find out in a second. I want it without the.
Yeah, it's hard to tell them apart, but they're delicious either way. And there's so many ways to do this. We could have added, caramelized some nuts to put in there. Really good with that. Some caramel sauce even in there is great.
Wow. So this is made from. Okay, folks, go to SpoonyWildRice.com. They have just about everything there. Yeah, wild rice, cultivated wild rice side dishes, polenta, breakfast cereals. Either of those can also then be made into a waffle mix, which we have right here. Then you have infused jellies, jams. You have syrups. You have, oh man, that choke cherry syrup. I can't believe someone took that.
Yep.
Okay, we may have given that away. I don't think we took it, but choke cherries are something very unique to the North, and it's something that people down here have never heard of. And why are they? And, you and I both know, but why are they called a choke cherry?
If you'll eat one, you'll know about it. They're definitely. It's not something you eat right off the bush and enjoy. You have to make it into a jelly or a syrup, and the jellies and syrup are 50% sugar, so it turns them into an edible product at that point in time. But
that's okay.
It's a native fruit. We're one of the few parts of the country that they are native to. Mm-hmm. And people grow up in Minnesota. A lot of the kids grew up. It's fun talking to people about it. Either brings back real fond memories or cold sweats. If they were forced to go out and they hated doing it, to go pick the fruit. Mm-hmm. They loved eating the jellies and syrups, but picking it was a different subject probably.
Okay, it's not like the other berries, right, where you can just eat it, where you're picking.
We're very fortunate in northern Minnesota. We have joke. Chances are, if you fall down, you can eat what you landed on. And I'm not serious.
No, I love that.
I'm
That's
very
absolutely
serious. We have very few poisonous plants and critters and things, and we're very fortunate. We have a huge variety of different native fruits, and they all are very good to eat and good for you. So we're very fortunate.
So down here, we have this thing called polk salad, Polk, and I'm not sure why. Someone decided to eat it. Polk salad makes you very ill. Oh. It's like a cover green, a clover almost, but it's not a clover. But it's this ground cover type plant. But apparently, if you boil it and rinse it and boil it and rinse it and boil it and rinse it and boil it and rinse it like 5 times, you can eat it.
So
but what are they? Why?
Who did that?
I mean, unless you were absolutely starving and had the energy to boil water and strain it and boil water, why?
That's my question.
I never could figure that. It's like, look, I lived in Japan. I love Japanese food is my favorite, and I'm a purist when I eat it, but I don't care what you can, whatever you put on your Japanese food is fine. But blowfish, who in the world thought, hey, the cat ate that and died, let's try it? Or, drunk sailor comes in, hey, this fish looks good, dies in like 8 seconds. Who thought, hey, let's figure out how we can eat this. Like, how could we prepare it so we don't kill everybody? Honestly, how hungry do you have to be?
My attitude is there's enough really good things in the world to eat that you could eliminate 1 or 2 of them. So.
It's like the whole thing it's like skydiving. Why jump out of a perfectly good airplane if you don't have to?
Have you ever met skydivers? I know a few of them. They're all interesting.
Junkies, adrenaline junkies.
They're interesting people. So.
Yeah, a lot of chefs I know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so choke cherries, I'm going to look that up because we have them in upstate New York as well. They grow just in a specific, that band of cold winter. But what's funny is they don't grow as well during the warm years in New York. I think, it's
too warm for them. They need that cold, just like a lot of the products that grow up there.
Well, we talked about that with maple syrup. So, I mean, that's a huge, Minnesota's a huge producer of maple products.
Yep.
But you have more maple trees than people, and you have a lot of protected lands. Now, do you have, is it BLM up there, Bureau of Land Management, or is that Colorado has what's called the BLM?
We have the reservations own the property.
Okay.
We don't have BLM land. That's more of a Western thing. But we do have a number of large reservations. We're talking 700,000 to 800,000 acres.
Well, you keep talking. Well, this chocolate cinnamon, oh my God.
The reservations are very large, 700,000 or 800,000 acres, and most of the reservations, interestingly, where they're located is on the wild rice beds. That's where their ancestors would travel from to the lakeshore for the harvest season for wild rice. Springtime, they would migrate to the sugar bush. So 2 of our main products actually have been historically go back for centuries and have been sustaining people in the winters that we have up in northern Minnesota.
Well, and they don't call it Land O'Lakes for nothing. I mean, really. Sure. I have a great friend, Barry Furseth. He's my fish vendor in California for a long time, and he's just a phenomenal expert on seafood. And we open he owns it, but I was one of the partners originally, a seafood market and restaurant in, of all places, the landlocked state of Arkansas. But
really?
But yeah, it's done very well. But I have him call in, and he grew up in Minnesota. He grew up on the reservations. As a matter of fact, I believe his father was the superintendent of schools on one of the larger reservations. And so, it's interesting. My family has a Native American background, and we talk about there are certain words that you don't know. And look, this is just an open discussion, by the way, about living in that land. But commods, right? If you don't know what commods are, then you're not from. So it's commodities. It's the the government commodities that you get. The big block of cheese, and they're just all these
flour, salt, sugar.
Yes, and it's interesting that people. It's a whole. It's a unique culture. I mean, I don't just mean the reservation, but that entire region, and you see it in other pockets of the country. It's like the Pennsylvania Dutch or Amish country.
Yes.
It's a very unique region up there with a very unique historical. That's something I've never looked at the history of the development of like the upper Midwest.
You get up into the northern Minnesota is really the melting pot. A lot of the Eastern Europeans settled there. A lot of Czechs, Slovaks, many different people from all over Europe settle up there, and they actually thought it seemed like home to them. Same kind of environment up there. Why you would settle in northern Minnesota and decide to go into farming, I haven't quite figured out yet, but a lot of people did. A lot of people came to work the mines. They have huge iron ore mines back that built a lot of the country back in the day. And a lot of the people from Europe came for the mining. And they didn't seem to mind the cold. So interestingly, just kind of a side story, when they built the pipelines up in Alaska, where would you imagine a lot of the workers for the pipelines, heavy equipment operators who didn't mind working at 30, 40 below zero? A lot of them came from there's a huge connection between northern Minnesota and Alaska.
I believe that, yeah.
A lot of families went up there back in the pipeline, building the pipeline days, and a lot of them stayed. So
and again, it's those little things that you never know about. These little connections. Again, Alaska is connected to northern Minnesota in a way that people would never imagine. It's interesting to me. So if you're just tuning in, Chef Patrick Mosher, Food Biz Pro, we have Lori and Jay from Nostalgia Rice on the phone in studio. I'm so used to having you on the phone. You're real people.
We're real.
They're people.
We're standing in for them.
That's funny. But yeah, they have a huge array of products. Like Nostalgia, I can't even spell it. If you go to spoonywildrice.com and go to the website, they have, how many products do you have now?
Oh, lots. At one point, we had 87 different items on there.
Yeah, did you cut back a little?
We've cut back a little bit on that now. So yeah.
It's crazy. Everything from jams, jellies. They have breakfast cereal mixes. They have side dish mixes. You have wild and cultivated wild rice.
That's correct.
Yes.
And so you told me a little bit about the history of when they started cultivating, which was in the 50s?
Yes, they started in the 50s. And there were two or three main families that started it. And Jay knows more about it. That was his background. He was a salesperson for the Wild Rice Company that we worked for. So I'll let him tell you about them.
Basically, it started with Godwards was the main family that started. And think of that. We were talking about corn and oats and wheat have been hybridized or been developed for centuries, for thousands of years. And wild rice, virtually, you were talking 40, 50 years or 60 years maybe of actual in quote-unquote commercial production. And you're still talking about such a small overall quantity. The total world production is maybe 20 million pounds. It may have peaked a while back at 25 million pounds, something like that. That's not a lot of product when you think of in the world today. And it was literally a handful of people who decided to go out into the wild. What they do, wild rice is a shattering plant.
Mm-hmm.
And the head itself may be about 6, 7, 8 inches long, and the seeds will ripen from the top down. But as they ripen, they will fall off into the water. So the trick was to find plants that tended to hang on better or ripen more uniformly. So that's what the original growers went to look for over time. And it just slowly, there've been modest improvements in the seed over years. But again, you're looking at a handful of years compared to thousands of years trying to hybridize or to develop corn and wheat and other grain products.
Well, and then if you have like we talked about this year, you have a lot of standing water that's still it's not melting. There's no runoff, and so if that all melts at one time, you had spoken about a couple. How long ago was it that you had the flooding that?
In 2012, and it was just a perfect storm. We actually had no snow that winter, so we weren't expecting flooding. But starting on Memorial Weekend, it rained for 26 days straight.
Oh, my goodness.
Last night was a foot.
Yeah.
Wow.
We went home and, we'd been listening to Doc about stocking up and being prepared. We had 1 egg, no milk, no bread.
Got a lot of wild rice, though.
Freezer full of meat. So I made brownies, but we were stuck at home for 2 days because the rivers north of us and the river south of us flooded.
Wow.
And it has nowhere to go because where we live is actually the basin of a glacier lake. So all the water comes there, and it only goes down the river. That's it. And so it sat there until July, 3rd week in July.
Oh, wow.
So all the vegetation in our area was covered that long and just rotted.
So it's bad enough this year you get snowed in, then you get flooded in.
Yes.
But hey, you got lots
we got
lots of meat in the freezer, and you got lots of wild rice to eat.
We have great taxes, though, in Minnesota. That's where we live for, the climate and the taxes in Minnesota.
Texas isn't bad. There's no income tax here.
We have crazy taxes. So.
Do you really?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Minnesota's right up there. So
really?
A lot of people you probably have some of our neighbors in Texas that have escaped from Minnesota.
Yes. And a lot of us came from New York or other California or other places. I came from both. So left the East Coast to the West Coast as fast as I could, got here. But oh my goodness! So we're eating these waffles. These waffles are made from this is from the breakfast cereal, right?
You can make it from the breakfast cereal or just the plain polenta. We have the 1 pound packages, or you can make it from the 10-ounce plain cereal as well. You just have to cook the polenta first. It takes 1 cup of polenta.
And it's like 8-10 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it takes just 1 cup of polenta, and it's actually a regular waffle recipe, but you're using the wild rice instead of all that flour. We do add a 1/4 cup of regular flour in there just to bind it all together. But yeah, it's just 75% wild rice. So what you're eating is actually guilt-free. You can just ignore the ice cream.
And I was telling you, one of
condiment.
Yeah, well, actually, the ice cream's. Oh my! But the first bite I had no ice cream on it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
and it's very low sugar. So for all of this, we put in 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Maple sugar.
Yeah, we were doubling the recipe. It's actually 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of oil, 1 tablespoon of milk, and then an egg, and then a little
half cup
salt.
of sugar, right?
No sugar.
I mean,
a
flour.
1/4 cup of flour. Yeah,
1/4 cup. That's it.
If you're just doing the single recipe.
But if you need to be gluten free, now I've made the savory waffles where I pulled the chicken, and actually put it in the poultry seasoned polenta mix. I didn't put. I just used rice flour.
Yes.
Now it's a little more dense that way, but I use the. Instead of baking powder, I used baking soda, so it fluffed it up a little bit.
Yep.
But it's phenomenal. This tastes like a waffle you would get anywhere.
Yes.
It's got so this has cocoa powder in it, right?
Yes.
Instead of melted chocolate.
Yep.
It's phenomenal. And what I really like about it has that lightness and texture. It's not overly sweet. Man, that cocoa powder adds a depth you don't get from just plain chocolate, because I think sweetness overpowers chocolate.
Yes.
Man, I can have this for breakfast all the time.
And you can go online too and print. There's the cooking instructions on there, but there's also all these serving suggestions so that you can eat it for breakfast or lunch or supper. And just some of the ingredients you can add into it, just turn it into something totally different.
Or whichever base you use. Like the savory bases would be good. They're great for a dinner. I made breakfast. I've used them a couple of times. So the standard wild rice, everybody here likes this the best. I was telling you, I made the rice bowls, so I had to sit up because I get excited about talking about your product. But so I made a whole bunch of the wild rice the day that we were going to do we did the Black Friday for 12 hours. So the first was breakfast bowls. So I made two varieties, both with warm wild rice. Half of it had been cooked in chicken stock, the other half in water. The one that had been cooked in water, of course, drained it off. I put it was hot. We put strawberries, blueberries, but sliced banana, sliced almonds, and sliced almonds on there, and then we put almond milk on there, and then a little bit of drizzle of honey, or we put the maple sugar on there,
syrup,
which was awesome. Now the maple sugar, that was really good. But then the savory version was, I had cooked the other half in chicken stock, and it was served warm, and I took bacon, chopped bacon, chopped ham. We had no bell peppers. We had diced tomato, and then cheddar cheese, and then a fried egg on top.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, Matt he's like, dude, when are you going to make me breakfast again? I'm like, dude, when are you going to make me breakfast sometime? But yeah, so I really love cooking with the product. The waffles are so versatile. This is so different than the savory waffles that I made. They're so light. I could eat this every morning. They're
yeah,
awesome.
there's so many combinations you can add in. You know, the bananas, you've got banana in one of them. You know, nuts.
And that cinnamon's
Any
a natural
kind of fruit.
Yeah, it's a natural pairing for the other one.
Yep.
Yeah, and this would be. I mean, it's a very healthy breakfast. Really, if you're gluten free, you're looking for a superfood. This is really it. It's 13 of the 14 amino acids, right?
Yes.
It's very low in glycemic index. So if you're diabetic, it's very diabetic friendly.
Yes.
It's very low calorie considering the nutritional density. It's high in fiber. It's gluten free. It's the only native grain in North America. I don't know what else more you can say about it.
Right.
And it doesn't smell like asparagus like quinoa does. It doesn't. Have you ever cooked like when you steam?
Yes.
You know, if you do quinoa the right way, you're supposed to steam it in a colander. It's got a little bit of that asparagus smell to it, and it's not my favorite.
No,
I eat it, but
this has got a roasted nutty flavor. We like to say.
It's really good.
Roasted and nutty.
Do you have any other long stories? I really want to finish the waffles.
Oh.
So I mean, now you have the the beer jelly. Okay, you have wine. Right, you make some wine there from the berries and the native grape, which is the only. Yeah, that's the smaller. So we were talking before. It's the. So there's a couple of things behind that grape. Do you realize that grape is why the French hate us, right?
Why? Because we have a natural wild grape?
No, what happened was about 150 years ago, the 1860s, we started taking grapes from the United States to Europe. Well, Vitis vinifera, the one grape that's native to North America, has a little mite that lives on the rootstock. That mite is called phylloxera. Phylloxera wiped out like 90% of the old vines in Europe. There were some protected areas, like certain parts of Italy were protected by the Dolomite Mountains. A lot of Germany was protected from by the Alps because the mites can't go through rock. So, but even to this day in France, they have to graft their grapes onto rootstock from the Vitis vinifera plant, the native grape here, because it's the only one that's resistant to phylloxera. And now it's actually starting to become less resistant. So it's a big deal. So when you think about it, it's not because we bastardize everything they do over there, and I don't think we do. Don't get me wrong.
They were protecting their rootstock.
Yeah, because they lost like 150, 200-year-old vines.
I almost feel bad.
Almost. But I have to say, look, we all pick on the French for being a little snooty, and I love France. I have never had a bad experience there. I've never been treated ill, and I have some heritage that direction. I don't speak French. I don't pretend to, and I've loved it there. But then again, I'm just happy to be there. I'm like, ooh, really cheap, great wine at a grocery store. It's like $8 for a $60 bottle of wine. Holy crap! I love you. I love the French. And cheese should be like $14 a pound. It's like $3. I love it.
Yes. How could you not?
It was all tax actually, though. I was paying it, but. That's why they hate us.
It's all imported from the U.S., but
I know, yeah, it's a beautiful country. I need to spend more time there someday.
I would rather go to spend my time in Alaska, but that's just a personal.
Actually,
that's just a personal opinion.
Well, and no, I've never spent time there.
You need to go.
I know.
That's all I'm saying.
I know. I really need to do that. And my friend Barry is because he has this connection with the tribes, many tribes.
Yep.
He has a very good connection with there's a tribe that they are allowed to go out and fish before, like 2 weeks before the salmon fishermen go out. They live in the very northernmost point of Washington State, and it's like a 45-minute boat ride just to get out to the islands where they live. And it's not a fun ride. It's very bumpy, but they have the most amazing salmon because they get them early. So they get them before they get not quite to the mouth, and they're very, very fatty. Oh my gosh! And sometimes you get the what do they call it? The ivory salmon. Have you ever seen those? They're like white.
White.
Yeah.
The white
yes.
king.
Yeah.
The white
king.
king.
Yes.
White kings,
yeah. Because they eat. They don't eat the typical krill and shrimp, right? They actually eat what are they? The squid. The small
you don't know
cuttlefish.
it's a white king until you clean it.
Exactly, you don't. Yeah, and you cut it open. It's like, oh, the heavens open, but they're so fatty. It's almost like jelly inside. Sometimes they're so like when you cook them, they almost fall apart. They're so.
Yes. One of our favorite, another salad that we really like is using the smoked salmon is really nice in there. Crab meat or smoked salmon are really nice. Earlier today we also did a Southwest style salad. So, but that one was healthy. The creamy ones are maybe not quite as healthy as the Southwest one was, but that's what absolutely I just love that salad. And with the smoked salmon or with the crab is just excellent.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say. So you can, I love salmon. Some people don't; it's too fishy. But whatever your favorite protein is, wild rice lends itself well to spice. It really does, and it can be used as a grain. It can be used as a base for a salad. It can be used as a side dish. We used it again today as a base for a salsa. I mean, like it was a dip, but it was more like a side salad. But it could be used either way. But if you added, I mean, it's a complete meal in itself. It really is. You could live off that easily. But then by adding something like a blackened salmon, if you don't like salmon, could be whatever. I love blackened though. It's done incorrectly so often, but I'm telling, that's my favorite preparation with your product. Although the stir fried wild rice that I did on Black Friday was pretty good.
Yeah,
it was very spicy, but it was yummy.
Yeah, we tend to do a lot of stir fries because that's kind of your base for like any next meal you want to make with it. Because you can take that with all your vegetables in there and turn it into all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
So we usually start out with a stir fry and then go from there.
Our favorite breakfast is take the leftover wild rice stir fry, put it in a pan with some butter, start warming it up. It's already cooked. And then just whip a few eggs together and then just do scrambled eggs with a wild rice mix. Absolutely just one of the best meals you could ever eat. And we started doing that camping just because you could go all day on it, and now it's just a staple that we do that once or twice a week. I would say probably.
Yeah, and that's another thing is it's a very complex carbohydrate. It's not like eating mashed potatoes or a bread, which they're absorbed and digested by the body quickly, and the energy is burned very quickly. I'm going to make a mess if I don't move this. So, see, I have my sippy cup so I don't spill. Anyway, but really, it's a very, very healthy product that has long-lasting, energy, and that's what I've noticed. When I make the waffles, typically by the time the show or anything in the morning with the wild rice, typically by the time the show comes around, if I don't eat something that's really your grain based or with a lot of protein in it, I'm jittery. Like I start to get hungry. I don't ever have a problem with this. I mean, I have energy till way past the show, and then I don't really eat again until dinner. Not that I shouldn't. I just don't feel hungry. It's got a ton of energy without making you. There's no high. There's no, again, the low glycemic index makes
the Native Americans have what they called runners, and so they would be running all day long. And they were taking messages elsewhere type of a thing. But they would take the wild rice and they would take some of their dried meat and they would pound pemmican. They drown the, and it's the perfect food if you're looking to make some kind of a bar that's going to last you a long time. And they would pound the rice in there. They would pound the dried fruits in there, actually. So then that was like a complete meal. Yeah, that was easy to haul. It lasted because the meat was dried. And, the rice is going to last a long time. And so it was like the perfect food. But they could run a long ways on it.
Yeah, so the only thing they add in is a little bit of fat to kind of bind it all together. So pemmican, it's funny that you mentioned that. One of our listeners is trying to develop a bar with another complex carbohydrate that we can't talk about because he called in and I'll probably have him call in on Wednesday. But pemmican, I said, look at pemmican.
Yes.
If you're looking at a binder, you want to figure out how to balance that bar out and not have it all based on that one component, then that's really the ideal mix. But you're right. The long-burning carbohydrates, the protein, the fat, and then the berries, right? The additional, you have antioxidants there and additional energy and more complex carbohydrates and a little bit of sugar.
Yeah,
it's
honey.
fantastic.
They used to do wild honey. They would add that to it for that instant sugar thing, but then the rest of it kept them going.
And you have honeys, right? You have your whipped honeys.
Yes.
And I didn't realize you had mentioned earlier that Minnesota is one of the largest producing states for honey.
We're in the top 5. It depends. It varies somewhat from year, but southern third of Minnesota, and then all the way up to the Red River Valley and northwestern Minnesota, all the way up to Winnipeg is all very agricultural. A lot of that real light clover honey, which is what we sell the most.
That's good stuff.
And that's what we use for the winery is the clover honey.
So there, people have this buckwheat honey, real black stuff. There are two that I really like: clover honey, like real clean clover honey, and Tupelo honey. Tupelo is kind of hard to find because it's only those people over there on the East Coast, Southern East Coast. Forget it.
Yeah, it's clover basswood. It's hard to get away from that mix in Minnesota, but clover basswood honey is what most of it is.
So what is basswood?
The basswood bloom in June. It's a big yellow key on the basswood tree.
Really?
Yeah, it's real pretty, but it's another real soft, mild flavor honey.
So real quick, if they go to the website, go to SpoonyWildRice.com. You don't have to spell it Nostalgia. If you type in the promo code SPRING10, then you get 10% off the entire order.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Till March 31st.
All right. So, you ever heard of whistlewood?
I don't think so.
Ironwood?
Ironwood, yeah.
Okay. When I was a kid, and I don't know if you, but we used to make whistles from that.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can twist the bark off. So we would actually, we were talking about trees, and, I'm thinking about my life growing up in the North, but, I'm gonna make one on the air sometime.
My dad used to use, I want to say sumac.
Sumac, yeah. Sumac, you could use sumac, but a lot of people
he actually used it also for the maple tree taps, because you could take a hot iron and push it, or
right
a hot rod. Actually, it was just
the tap,
hanger,
yeah.
a hanger. You got hot and push it through. Mm-hmm. Is that the same thing?
Well, no, we would separate so you to pull the. We're gonna run out of time. You want to stay over for a minute?
Sure.
We have plenty of time. We had a whole nother hour. We got to fill.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. So, but yeah, it's there's so many cool things when you grow up in the country, especially in a place that has a very unique flora and fauna. There's so much stuff you get to do that people in cities don't. Now, Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of great stuff in the cities as well. If I had enough money to live there, New York's the greatest place in the world because you can escape anytime you want. But yeah, it's cool things. We used to make these whistles. I'll tell you about that. And we have 30 seconds left, folks. We have Jay and Lori from, or Lori and Jay, sorry, ladies first, from Nostalgia Rice. Again, go to the website, SpoonyWildRice.com. You can go to MojoWildRice.com and type in the promo code SPRING10. Get 10% off the entire order. Their food's fantastic. I really want to finish this. I'm actually journaling a little bit, but yeah, you missed the chocolate waffle. Sorry you're not here, but glad I am. Hey, come on back in 4 minutes. We'll be here talking more waffles, wild rice, and whistles. Whistles. Yeah. All right, we'll be right back.
This is the only 24-hour take-anywhere platform dedicated to food and fun. We're Spoony.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm John Scott. Rank and file House Republicans breathing a sigh of relief and celebrating the release of the Mueller report.
One after another, Republican congressmen coming to the floor and claiming vindication.
No collusion, no collusion, no collusion. That's right. After 2 years, Mr. Speaker, let me say that again. There's no collusion.
Socialist Democrats and their fake news media allies made up non-existent allegations and engaged in the most sordid of fake news.
For the most part, Democrats left it to their leaders to face the cameras and microphones and demand the release of the full report.
Capitol Hill correspondent Wally Hines reporting. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham says now that the Mueller report is over, it's time for a special counsel to look into the Clinton presidential campaign.
By any reasonable standard, Mr. Mueller thoroughly investigated the Trump campaign. You cannot say that about the other side of the story.
Senator Lindsey Graham. The UN Mideast envoy has condemned the firing of a rocket from Gaza into Israel and says Egypt wants to help mediate.
Nikolai Mladenov has called the overnight strike, which wounded 7 people, absolutely unacceptable. He's tweeted that the UN is working intensely with Egyptian mediators and all sides to stave off a looming escalation, but that the situation remains very tense. Efforts by Egypt and the UN to restore a ceasefire between Israel and Gaza's Hamas rulers have halted bouts of cross-border violence in the past. Meanwhile, Israel says teams will hold agricultural work near the security fence that separates Israel from the Gaza Strip to improve readiness, it says, for a military escalation after the overnight rocket attack. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Also on townhall.com, U.S. prosecutors have charged President Trump critic and attorney Michael Avenatti with extortion and bank and wire fraud. He was arrested today in New York. He faces federal charges. More of these stories at townhall.com.
It looks like you're losing.
I am.
Are you losing weight?
I am losing. I've lost about 10 pounds.
How are you doing it?
Funny name, but I've done it with Riduzone. RIDUzone.com, and the stuff works. It's, you get into all that, the molecule this and the found in that. All I can tell you is it makes you feel full, and it keeps your mind off of wanting to overeat.
And also boosts your metabolism, so you're burning more.
Yeah,
Try it today. It's going to work for you like it's worked for Brad and countless other people. Riduzone.com. RIDUzone.com.
If you're trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet.
I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month, based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
And welcome back. Man, those waffles are awesome. So if you're just joining us, Chef Patrick Mosher, the Food Biz Pro, we are here with Jay and Lori and Jay from Nostalgia Wild Rice. You guys have supported us for a long time. You were a doc for a long time. It's been a little over 3 years now total, right? I forgot. There we go.
For 7 years, Doc is the voice of our company.
Crazy,
so,
huh? That's absolutely
started
crazy.
out with the Building America segment. Was the very first time we were introduced to Doc, and it just kind of kept going from there. So,
man, it's awesome. You have such great products, and so I've known about you for about 3. It'll be 3 years. It's almost 3 years now. So that's when I first went on the air with Doc. So what have you seen happen in 7 years? I mean, how has the company changed?
Well, now the newest changes come with the advent of the internet. We've been on for 29 years. Well, the internet did
only 29 years.
29
really?
years, yeah. So, only 29. I'm ready for the gold.
It feels like forever.
I'm ready for my gold watch. The
Yes.
problem is I got to go buy the damn thing. But we decided now the internet didn't exist back then, but now we see that as really the wave of the future.
Isn't it amazing the internet didn't exist when we started? I don't know how
Really?
we did anything. Yeah, and nowadays you can't fathom that, but
I'll
we
go
did it
ahead and
all
figure it
without
out, yeah.
We all had to read magazines and look at the back to find out what you could order from different
Yes.
places in the world. Yeah.
For the holiday season, we'd send out a Christmas mailing for the gift boxes and things we do. It would take weeks for Lori to put all the packages together, do all the pictures, go to the printer, pay thousands of dollars at the printer. Then when you get the mailing, put all the mailing addresses on, and go to the post office, spend thousands more on the postage.
It's crazy.
In today's world, it is just a whole different.
Yeah,
ballgame.
MailChimp and $57 and boop, it's done.
Yeah. The box stores are just it's part of America that I'm going to miss, but I think we're going to see less and less of it. So.
I think so. We keep saying that though, but you still see. Look, I mean, there are a lot of empty strip malls. I have to say those kind of no man's land between towns,
Yes.
where they were starting development over the last 25 years.
Speculating gone wrong.
Well, I think it was just gone wrong from the beginning. I lived in Arizona. When we moved to Arizona, it was the late 70s, I think 79. And it was such a, Ron, he's such a good guy, man. He's like making sure we're okay over everything okay. Because he's producing another show. He's got to produce another show, and he's a class act. He and Tom,
Really?
Tom is such a, he's a classy guy.
You guys all are.
Ron,
I
too.
mean, you're
Thank you.
wonderful people.
We have fun.
Yes, and we have fun doing it.
A lot of fun, actually.
listening to you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Too
funny.
much fun.
You guys are like, like, we don't want to add any extra stress. I'm like, no, I run around like this every day. I promise there's no extra stress. It's pretty much like this every day. It's not always, I'm not always cooking, but I'm always running around a little, I'm not off kilter.
It's been fun.
There's a lot to get done.
Yeah.
And for the best of reasons. We're more motivated than ever to make sure this actually goes forward and succeeds because, Doc's wife and three children left behind, and we need to make sure that we take care of them and ourselves. Yeah.
And we're motivated to help you to make that happen. So.
Well, it's been fun. I mean, you guys keep me. I get to eat free every day because you send so much stuff down that, and I'm one of those guys. I could eat the same types of food every day. I don't have a problem with that. And fortunately, I know how to cook well enough to kind of vary it up so I don't get bored. But
and we're trying to come up with recipes so you're not eating the same thing every day.
And you don't have to. That's the great thing.
Yeah.
Because we had that cheesy.
The adult mac and cheese.
Yeah, because it's so it's wild rice. It had a surprise ingredient in it. It has a little bit of sweetened condensed milk.
Yes.
Okay, and it had I actually put 2 cheeses in it. I put not just mozzarella, but I put provolone.
Oh, perfect.
And then it had a little bit of mayonnaise. Yep. And then what else did it have in there?
Had corn in it.
Yep, it's delicious. It was awesome. And then it's kind of
beautiful peppers.
I couldn't bake it, but I mixed it while it was hot, and then I reheated it in the microwave, and then I topped it with cheese again.
Yes.
Oh my God, so good.
Yeah, and it's even better the second time around.
It actually was better the next day. So, as most things are.
Unlike the salad we ate today, it probably wasn't as healthy for you, but it was comfort cheese we needed. We needed that dish a month ago when it was so cold. It was just like, we need to eat that. It
was delicious. But yeah, and your soups. I've stayed with Terry and Tom a few times at their house. I've been, kind enough to ask them to come out. But I made the corn chowder, and I put blackened shrimp in there.
Awesome. That would be great.
Well, and there's that classic pairing. The corn and shrimp chowder is kind of a, the texture of shrimp is something that you can't describe to someone, right? It's kind of rubbery, but no, it's chewy,
juicy.
But no, it's not. But it's yeah. I mean, you really can't describe it until you taste it. But that particular flavor and texture with the sweetness of corn, which yours is not overly sweet, which is great. You can't beat it. And the soup mixes are so easy. It's 2 cups of water. You add the wild rice, which is separate.
Cook your rice first, everybody.
Yep, throw that in there with the 2 cups of water, and then when the rice is cooked, which it went pretty quick, it was less than 20 minutes on that one.
It is.
Then you add 2 more cups of water, and then the rest of the dry soup mix, and you're done. You just let it come to a boil, pretty much maybe a minute or 2, until it cooks in.
It's as thick as you want. Yep.
Awesome. And then I just put the shrimp in the bottom of a bowl and ladled that around.
Yeah, and you can add any kind of a meat in there.
Oh yeah, and you get the tomato basil. That was actually surprising. It was that was a different flavor. Like a lot of times it's either they put too much sugar in to counterbalance the acid, or it's too
tomatoey,
too tomato pasty, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't, and especially when you work with a dry product, that's a hard balance to get.
Yeah.
And you blend that yourselves, or do you?
Yeah, we buy the ingredients and blend that ourselves.
Wow.
And so we put a little thought into it, and from childhood, you either made tomato soup without milk or with it. So
were you without or with? Which one were you?
I had it both ways.
Both ways.
So my house is a little different. My mother made a very simple tomato soup. It was really rustic. It was basically stewed tomatoes or canned tomatoes that we had canned. But she broke them up, and then it was there was chicken stock, and then some other spices and herbs. But then as it simmered down at the very end, they added milk and butter, and that was it. There was it wasn't pureed. It was a rustic, chunky.
Did she add any basil or anything in there?
Sometimes basil, but also a little baking soda to neutralize the acid, so you didn't have to put as much other stuff in there to cover it up. It was really good. I mean, that was, and then Campbell's soup came along, and it was around before, but look, I was the youngest of 5, and there's a huge gap. Like there's 15 or 16 years between myself and my eldest sister, and
welcome to only childhood.
Well, no, I have another sister who is 2 years older. But my mother, she cooked every day. She just want to cook every single meal. I don't blame her. I don't know. So people are like, I don't know what to cook for you. I'm like, you know what? A grilled cheese sandwich, Campbell's tomato soup, and I don't have to cook. I'll wash dishes.
Yeah. And that tomato soup, wow.
If you get
a good ciabatta bread and do a grilled cheese with it, get some smoked Gouda or something.
Okay, now I'm actually okay. Dessert's done. Can we have lunch now?
Now I'm thinking about this, but I mean, it's just so good together. It's just the perfect pairing, and it's so easy to do.
There's something about that toasted bread.
Mm-hmm.
And the gooey cheese,
yep.
And if you get the right cheese, it's got enough bite to it. We both like. I love white cheddar.
Yes.
Okay.
We do too.
And white cheddar. So I like the texture of true white American cheese from the Northeast. not the processed white American, just white American cheese. It's almost like a white cheddar, but it's like a mild white cheddar. I love
Is it smoother?
Yeah, I'll send you some. Yeah. It comes in a block just like cheddar. It's not the processed stuff that used to go in a tin to World War II with the no. That's how it came about.
Got there, huh?
Yeah,
Tin.
so it is. So that's how processed cheese started. They needed something that was shelf stable. Isn't that crazy? So they sent it to war. Yeah. And I
didn't know that.
Yeah, it came in these tins, and they ate it with like a spoon. They or just dump it out and slice it up, I guess. But millennials, thank goodness, have kind of killed that industry because they don't want processed cheese. They don't want processed anything. I don't blame them. However, as a chef, it melts really well on your burger. It just doesn't taste right. It looks good. Doesn't taste right.
It doesn't taste right. Yeah. No.
You have to try our pan breads too. That is a great combination with the soup.
So that's the only thing I haven't tried. I've had every other. I've had all the polentas, all the breakfast cereals. I've had all the soups.
Yep. Try one of the savory pan breads with one of the soups, and it's just.
Well, I know what I'm having for dinner tonight.
They take the same amount of time to cook, so you got the pan with one burner going with the soup, and the other burner going with the pan.
Okay, so I don't have a burner, so I have one electric skillet. But what I'm going to do?
No, in the electric skillet it will cook.
But I'm going to go buy a second electric skillet, right? So or some other way to. There's got to be a way. Oh, I could actually make the soup in the crock pot. Believe it or not, I know how to do that.
Perfect, yeah.
So I'll do that, and then I'll make the pan bread.
Yeah, so the pan breads are really simple, and there's 3 savory ones and there's 3 sweet ones.
Mm-hmm.
So breakfast, you'd have it with butter and honey or your syrup, but the savory ones are going to be great with your soup. So there's a garlic and herb one.
And I cut one of those open. I opened it and smelled it. And I don't know what somebody took the package. I don't know where it went because I want to cook it. It smells so delicious. The garlic and herb sounds good.
Yeah, and that's just simply our garlic and herb seasoning.
When you're cooking it, it's like the smell of fresh made bread in the house. You're doing it on the stovetop, but it just fills the house with that fresh bread smell. It's just so good.
That sounds good. So how does that how is the flavor different than I like so I grew up we didn't really have we had cornbread, but not till I moved to out west. When I was a kid, my mother would make they're not Johnny cakes, but she would make these like cornbread fritter things, right?
Oh, fritter, yeah.
Yeah, but they were cornbread, but they were just made in the pan, and they were toasted in butter with oil with butter, and they're kind of like small pancakes, right? But they were denser than cornbread.
The pan breads actually start from camping. We have the Boundary Waters canoe area on the Minnesota-Ontario border, and I grew up. We made bread over the open fire, and so at home it's just a natural thing to do. It's a heavier, about 2-3 inches thick, and you got more of a heavy crust top and bottom, and it's just got the real more firm texture to it. It's when you break the bread, it's
a little more dense. Yeah.
And it just like I said with the soups, it's just an absolute natural. Or for the sweeter ones, just for very good to eat.
Hey, as long as it's not hardtack, my teeth are getting a little brittle. We're okay.
No, it's going to be. It's
easy.
Yeah, it's a little denser than maybe your traditional pancakes. But not as grainy as cornbread. But it was the idea of cornbread to be able to cook it on the stove, so you didn't have to turn the oven on, and you wanted a quick bread.
I love it.
It's basically a quick bread.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Quick bread. So people don't know quick bread, look it up.
Yeah.
Muffins, quick bread.
Yeah, cooks in 20 minutes.
Exactly. So we talked about some of the unique food sources that we have in the northern climates, right? So and that stuff happens down south as well. Don't get me wrong, but I grew up in a household that had lots of wild game in the freezer all the time. Although my grandfather had a farm right down the street or right down the road, and we slaughtered 2 or 3 head of cattle a year, and we split those up in the wintertime between the families. But we had, we would have oftentimes let me go back one step. My father was a hunter, fisherman, trapper. He often had, and yes, you could smell it from quite a ways away, but he had these drying racks, and basically it's it's like a tent frame without the tent on it. It's just these basically two poles leaning against each other on each end, and then you have the racks that run across that. There would be beaver. There would be what else do you have? Muskrat. There would be
that was the pelts. Not the meat. It was the pelts.
Fox. There would be all sorts of pelts. And actually, I didn't realize this, but he made a lot of money from that. But my father would run on a snowmobile, about 30-mile trap line every day. And he loved it. I mean, it wasn't because we needed or wanted it. He just loved to do it.
Yeah, I used to do actually as a child. I think we started when we were 8 and 9. My brother and I were 11 months apart. That was how we made money, was muskrat trapping.
Really?
Because they were everywhere.
Remember that song, Muskrat Love?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know.
Now you're going to make me feel bad.
As we like to call them, swamp chicken. So.
But you got $2.50 per pelt, and that was our Christmas money.
That's actually, you know.
Back then, it was more back then, I'm sure, than it is now, I guess.
Well, now, did your parents pay you?
No,
okay.
My dad took it. We did all the work and cleaned them up and stuff, and then he would take them to a guy he knew was buying them.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and he would take them in and sell them.
So. I think he took $1 off the top.
It's possible. There was some gas involved, and walking out in the cold in the morning and night after school.
Yeah. So my father, I was very young when he passed, but I would run that trap line with him on the back of a snowmobile.
Oh, cool.
I don't know how that man did it day in and day out. He would, in the summertime, he would get up before dawn and go fishing on his way to work. And he worked shift work for 20 whatever years at the mill before he passed. Probably 20. He was 20 when he's 28 years.
Wow.
And rotating shift work. I mean, so no matter what shift, he fished before or after the shift, or he hunted before or after the shift. And he used to take me ice fishing. Okay, so ice fishing up north where you are is different than what we have. We don't put a hut, and we don't have rods. We use tippers, right? So you go out and you drill holes. You use your auger, you drill the holes, but you put out 20 holes, and then you have it's basically an 8-inch flat pole that has a spike on the bottom that you pound down in, and it has a flag that's so it has a hinge in the middle. And then there's a flag which faces down, which is attached to the top part of that post. And then when a fish takes the bait, it tips up, and you get the flag goes up, and you have to keep watching all the holes. And quite often as a child, you're walking along, and someone did not put a pile of snow where they'd last augered a hole, and you would frequently fall through with your leg and get wet up to the waist.
Lovely.
Yeah, but
yes.
the ice was so thick many times, we would drive the car out on the lake, and then my father would he'd kind of etch out this shallow bowl. We'd throw all the fish in that. They just freeze right down. Yeah. And then but he would put up a lean-to and light a fire in front of the lean-to, and so I could stay warm. But he would go before dawn and come back after dusk. I mean,
wow.
It was awesome.
Avid.
Ice fishing is
fanatic.
Ice fishing.
Okay, there's that word.
Ice fishing is huge in Minnesota. There's Mille Lacs Lake is one of the walleye factories in the country. It's about half hour south of us where we are. And they literally will have towns out there with 10,000 people. And
it's crazy.
Pizza delivery guys running from house to house, and street signs out. And
that movie, is it Grouchies?
Grumpy Old
Men?
Oh, yeah.
That is so true.
That was in Minnesota.
That is so true.
So the thing is, though, like it's not like that in New York. You drive out on Lake Ticonderoga or something like that, or Lake George, and you just... it's just you, and you might look and see somebody else a couple miles up the road. But
we have plenty of other lakes you can have all to yourself, also. But
those communities are
we have 10,000 lakes to choose from. Some of them are a little more remote than others.
10,000.
And it's a village out there. I mean, the bars along the shore, they call them up and order pizza, and they'll run you pizza and beer and.
See, I love that.
Yeah, it's just like a little town out there, and people stay out there, for a whole week.
I love that kind of stuff. I love that. I don't know. I people are like, you like fishing? How do you like fishing? You know why? Because I can do nothing but this, cast and reel all day. I don't care. You take my bait, I'll put more worms on. I don't care. If I catch a fish, awesome, I'm eating dinner.
Yeah.
If not, we order pizza. It's okay. I like it. It's very rare that I get downtime. Plus, when I was a kid, I went fishing a lot. My grandfather sold a bunch of land to a, so I'll give you a secret. I was really fortunate. We weren't rich, and we weren't poor, but we weren't rich. My grandfather had tons of land, and he sold a bunch of land to a gentleman who developed a giant campsite, campground behind us. And it was mostly tent camping when it started. Then he put in a lot of electricity. This place has like 5,000 campsites, something like that now. It's huge. Big pavilion with a movie, projected movie screen, and they have we
call that city living.
Yeah, I know. It's but there are no cabins. It's campsite only.
Oh, okay.
But it's huge, and it was pretty large when I was a child. There's one large lake, and then there were like two smaller lakes, and so I have lifetime fishing rights there. Okay. Oh, to my children, by the way, you have lifetime fishing rights in upstate New York at
your grandfather didn't.
Alpine Lake Campground. So,
big secret.
Yeah, and my brother actually bought the home. Our house backed up to that property, and my brother bought that for my mother after my father died.
Oh.
And
is it still in the family?
It's my brother still lives there. Yeah.
Oh,
he and his
wonderful.
Wife. Mm-hmm. But every day in the summertime, my cousin lived across the street, literally right across the street. We would go fishing down there every day that it wasn't raining.
Yep.
I mean, the crazy stuff that happened, like one of the sons of the owner of the campsite, we were gigging frogs. We just called it, frogging. I didn't know what gigging meant, but he had like a little three-pronged trident thing. His name was Patrick, and he was walking out on the dock, and he was just in front of, and he went to throw that thing, and he stuck it in his own foot. And it stuck to the dock, and we're like, I mean, I know, but it's almost comical when I look back at that. I'm like, that must have been the most painful thing ever. Those little bones on the top of the foot. Yes. Oh my! And so I remember running off to get the owner of the campground. Yeah, sorry, Leaf. I didn't.
Were you too small to pull it out?
Yeah, I think I was 6 or 7. So I was the youngest of the bunch. I might have been 8. It was after my father had passed. But we went fishing. I was sent off at dawn. Well, just post dawn in the summertime, with a single shot 22 and a box of 50 bullets, and said, "All right, see you sometime after lunch before dinner." What the hell were they thinking?
I don't know. We did
Thin
the same.
herd? I mean,
there were 7 of us, and we didn't lose any of us. But that's what we did.
There were and are still 5 of us, but I don't advocate for that, folks. But it was a very interesting time. We learned to be very independent.
Yes.
Okay.
Children learned how to take care of themselves.
And
it wasn't a harmful thing either.
No, but I was kind of a helicopter dad, I have to admit. I was way different than my parents were. But I was a latchkey kid. I wanted my kids to have more attention than I got. And even though I traveled all the time, when I was home, I was very present. And, hopefully now I still am able to mentor them. They're very well-rounded children, and thank goodness that, anyway.
You did a good job.
They're okay. But, it's so different now. Such a different time.
You're afraid to let them out the door now, and that can't be healthy.
No.
I
know we're not talking about food, but but family's part of that.
Family, and it's our heritage that they don't have. And I tell my grandchildren about this, and it's like, really? They're just amazed. You survived that?
Do you remember when your parents used to say...
My mom would never let me do that.
And I think, I'm not watching comments on Facebook. I'm sorry, I'll respond as soon as the show's over. But remember when your parents used to say, would you get out of the house and go play in the street? I'm like,
yes.
And don't come back till it's dark.
Yeah, don't come back till dinner time. I don't think I ever owned. We had the original Atari machine that had what 2 games on it. I never had another video game console after that. I never played another video game really. My friends all had Atari, this and that, and I don't think I.
We didn't even. You had that as a young child?
Yeah, but I don't remember. I mean, I remember playing it like one Christmas, and that was it.
I played my first video game at 16.
Really?
Ate at McDonald's
7-Eleven?
for the first time at 16.
I think I was 9 when the first time I went to McDonald's.
To put it in perspective, where we live, it's 44 miles to the closest McDonald's. So
good for you. It was like 30 miles for us. We had to go to Saratoga
Springs.
And
that's recent that they just put the McDonald's in. So.
Yeah, our childhood was out in the woods or on the bus. That was your social life. That bus ride was an hour and 20 minutes.
Mine was the same. It was about the same. We were the first on and the last off.
Yes.
Oh, my God. So the funniest story ever. Okay, Galen, my oldest sister, I love you to death. I don't know where the hell you were that day, but my mom was in the hospital. I was staying with my sister, and she lived, the town is small. It's Corinth, New York. It's like 7,000 people. Most of them live out of the town, maybe 2,000 in town. And so the school was at the very top of the big hill in town. And it's maybe, so you had to walk from the school to the end of the street the school was on, and then down the big hill, which is the main street, and down, my sister lived next to the library. I walk so I'm waiting for my sister to pick me up from school. I'm in like 2nd grade. I'm waiting. She doesn't show. So I'm like, okay. So I just start walking to the end of the street. And my aunt lived right next to the school. My mother's older sister, and she ran the candy shop. So I stop. I get my goldfish. I head down the hill. I take a right. I go down the big hill all the way down through town. It's half mile, 3/4 mile, maybe 3/4. Nobody there. I walk back up to the school. Nobody there. So I start traipsing out to our house. It's 7 miles. I made it all the way almost to the house, and my sister's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm walking home. I don't know. I didn't know where you were. You went to your place. You weren't there. Went back to school. You weren't there." Aunt Millie didn't know what to do, so I walked home. I mean, what else are you going to do? I didn't want to sit around at the school. There's nobody there. I didn't have a basketball, so.
Yeah, I mean, that was our social life, though, because I grew up on a farm. And at that age, you didn't, they didn't take you anywhere. You lived on your farm. So you got on the bus, and all the neighbor kids were on there, and that was your social life. You took a nap. You slept in the morning because it was an hour and a half. You did your homework on the bus. Never did it at home. And that was your social life.
Our bus ride was so bouncy, I had to do it at home, but I didn't, it's okay. I usually finished it at school. I was a really smart kid when I was young, and then I got dumber as I got older. But so I didn't have a lot of, I had friends, but they were my relatives. My cousin lived right across the street. And the only other people on that entire road, which I wasn't really related to, were at if you went left from my house to the end of the road, John Robarge. John, what happened to you? I know you. Last time I knew you were working in Glens Falls. Tell your mom I said hi. He lived at the end of that road, about quarter mile past my grandparents' house. And if you went to the right down the road, when you get almost to the end of the road again, which was 3 miles down, was another family, and they had a brother and a sister. I was between both of them in age. So anyway, that was it. Other than family, I was stuck with family. That's okay, though.
I didn't have family around us, but, the relatives or the road. Everybody on the road was family.
You stick around again?
Sure.
You sure? Sure. You sure? You can go take a nap. All right, we'll be right back. Chef Patrick Mosher, Food Biz Pro. Hang in there.
We went off it.
Follow Chef Patrick Mosher on Twitter @FoodBizPro.
Got an old car? You can donate it, whether it's running or not, to the United Breast Cancer Foundation and save a life. They'll even come and pick it up for free. The United Breast Cancer Foundation has saved hundreds of women's lives through their free or low-cost breast screen exams. But now they need your help. The United Breast Cancer Foundation wants to save more lives through early detection by offering women free or low-cost breast screening exams. And donating your old car, SUV, or truck, whether it's running or not, helps pay for them. Plus, you get a charitable tax deduction. Help the United Breast Cancer Foundation save lives by donating your old car, SUV, or truck. Call now for free pickup. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. Call right now. That number again is 800-245-0823.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-452-1075. 800-452-1075. That's 800-452-1075.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us. Our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com. Use promo code MATT, M-A-T-T, and get 15% off your purchase.
We got back to some food. Yeah, we could talk all day about our childhood.
Yeah, that was awesome. We had some visitors come in. One of the owners of the building, Gary, and his daughter, and the one who had met before. But yeah, that was very nice people. I'll tell you, the people here have been so nice to us. They've been so helpful. I can't tell you enough. Yep. Thanks. See, she's doing my job already. I forgot to unmute Jay's mic, although he was kind of playing silent, Silent Bob over there instead of Jay, the one who talks all the time.
Yes.
I'm a strong, quiet type.
Just get the work done and cook. Who cooks and who cleans? Both?
Both, pretty much, yeah.
We
heat with wood. That's kind of my job. That
was a trick question. I really didn't expect you to,
Well, I cook, and he does clean. God bless him for doing dishes, because I'm one of those cooks that when I'm done, everything in the kitchen is dirty. I just can't seem to get it clean while I'm cooking. What's up with that?
She hasn't figured out you can actually wash it and use it again. But that's just one of those things.
So what's funny is when I was in restaurants full time, where I started out, you kind of move up the food chain. By the time you're running a restaurant that's doing $7 million a year in food sales, I had a kitchen like at Universal Studios, just in one restaurant. I think I had a staff of about 50 people, rotating, of course. They didn't all work every shift. But it was
huge.
a big kitchen. I mean,
Yeah.
we had this downstairs was this huge prep kitchen and storage area. And then upstairs we could seat about, Gladstone's probably sat 350, 400 people maybe. And it was at Universal Studios on City Walk. So they would they would come in by the hordes. I mean, literally it was frightening. You hear this, it's like locusts, this swarm of locusts coming in to eat. And then, so what happens is, as the chef, you go in and maybe you take over someone's station or you work a station for the evening, or typically I'd expedite, but I would work the grill on occasion. They would get behind and I'd be like, go out front. And then at the end though, you just say, okay, I'm out of here. Thanks for cleaning up. And you just leave. Within a couple of years later, I became a private chef for these very wealthy families. And I remember the very first night I cooked in this home, I was like, man, I still got to clean all this crap up. Are you kidding me? I don't have someone to help clean up. I know y'all got some some domestics around here. Please. I have one more portion left. I'll feed you. The food I'm in. But no, you're stuck. It's just you and the houseman there in the evening. He served, you cooked, you cleaned up all your own stuff. You learn very quickly that everything gets used, immediately gets washed if you can. But that was a very interesting job. Very, very insightful to see how the other side lives. It was very cool. That family, the night that, remember the movie Shrek? I mean, everybody knows the movie Shrek, right?
Yep.
The night that debuted in the theaters, they had an armored vehicle deliver that on cellophane, the real cellophane, reel to reel.
Yes.
It was delivered to their house in Malibu, which was their temporary home that they owned while they were building their 38,000, 46,000 square foot house in Bel Air. But I know. I had a 2,000 square foot kitchen there. It was awesome, though. Anyway, while they were building that home, and they brought it, and they had this big viewing party. I did a 3-course meal. They went down and watched the movie, and then I did like 5 different seasoned popcorns and the ice cream sundaes and floats, and it was I made like 12 toppings. I made my own crushed candied pineapple, and I candied my own ginger, and I brandied some cherries. It was awesome. It was so much fun. And there was no food cost. I could buy anything,
Would you
anywhere,
come to Minnesota
anytime.
and do that?
Can I not have any food cost? And they paid me well into 6 figures.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Okay,
not quite my level.
Yeah, mine either
Sorry.
anymore. Apparently, apparently now I work for free. But I work for myself, so it's okay. And partners.
You work for the joy of it. Remember that.
You know what I do? I really love. Someone asked me, "Are you still loving what you're doing?" And I do. I love doing the show. Part of the reason I became a restaurant consultant is because I wanted to help as many people have a better experience in restaurants as I could. I'm really good at running restaurants. I love being a chef, but I enjoyed helping other restaurateurs become better at their craft and their trade, because you can touch a lot more people that way.
Yes.
Right now, this hopefully as we go forward will become even bigger, and we can help. Everybody enjoy food more. Mm-hmm. It's such a it's who you're made of. It's what you're made of. You literally are made of what you are what you eat. What they used to say, Mom, you are what you eat. Stop eating candy. You are. I mean, what you ate 37 days ago is now, cuticle becoming fingernail.
Hadn't thought of it that way, but
well, I mean, because your cells regenerate from the inside out, right? And so, think about that. I mean, we wonder why. We all get illnesses for various reasons, right? But we wonder why we're there's no such thing as overweight. We're over fat. There's a guy named Covert Bailey. He had this great book in the 80s called Fit for Life. That guy was already in his 60s or 70s. He was a big canoe guide in the I think he was from Canada, but along the Canadian border for a long time. That guy was the fittest old guy I'd ever seen. I was like, better looking than Jack LaLanne. That guy had big muscle, but he wasn't like a bodybuilder. But he's like, you can't be overweight, because you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? The guy weighed 270 pounds, but he was not overweight, right? He was just big. Now, you can be over fat, though, right? So your body mass ratio gets off. But yeah, that's the thing, is we eat whatever we want. It's a push-button society.
Yeah.
It's so easy, and we don't have to drive to McDonald's anymore. You have Uber Eats to deliver I've said this like 100 times, but yeah, you don't have to go down when the McRib is on sale. You don't have to drive down, leave your office and get it. You can have Uber Eats drive through the fast food drive-through lane for you and bring it to you. It's sad.
Yeah, at least before you had to put out some exercise to get it.
Yes, and being so connected to the food. I know you guys obviously grew up that way, so did I. But then also these unique products in that climate, particularly like choke cherries. There were things. Oh, we need to talk about the whistle. Don't let me forget the whistle before we go. But what else? So we talked about wild leeks, or what we call ramps, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's something that most people don't ever. Even most people have never had them in restaurants.
They're actually delicious too.
No, it's like a flat chive almost. That's somewhere between onion and garlic. The flavor,
mild onion.
Oh, it's awesome. And you talked about pickled ramps. Oh, that's one of my favorites. And chefs buy them. It's like $60 a pound when you buy them for a restaurant, and you have to buy X minimum pounds, like 2 or 3 or 5, and they're only available for like 2-3 weeks a year. Yep. And what happens with that? Then they start to, when you buy a big 2-pound bag of them, they start to rot. So first thing is pickle half, guys. Pickle the first half, then use them the rest of the year. But then we talked about we call them sunchokes. They're called Jerusalem artichokes. My mom just called them roots, but they're these. It looks like ginger, and and you just you rinse them off. They have a very thin skin on them that you peel off, or you can just use a spoon to peel it off. You can actually leave it on there if you roast them. It's okay.
So now, how do you eat those?
Okay, so there's a couple things you need to know. If you've never had that particular root before, they can cause a little bit of gastrointestinal distress, so to speak. You do become accustomed to it, and as you get more, you may have a little less bloating, gas, and running too. Yeah. But so what you typically do is you'd mix them with potatoes. Roasted, they're awesome. If you take, you ever see the like tiny baby potatoes are basically barely a bite. If you take those, and Jerusalem artichokes, oftentimes you get them, they're large like ginger, but usually they're small. They're each one of those, the picture, each one of those whole roots is basically bite size. Okay. And it's hard to peel them. Yep. So if you roast them together with the potatoes, and then just you can put like a what's it called? Creole mustard dressing on there. Yes. So you take your acid, your vinegar, whatever you want to use, and then you take Creole mustard, a touch of honey or sugar, salt, pepper, maybe some garlic in there, and you do it when they're hot. So it kind of absorbs all that, and then toss a little more, and then let it cool down on sheets, trays, and then right before service, add a little more of the vinaigrette. That's probably one of my favorite ways to do it.
So even if you roast them, it still has that effect.
It does have, and again, some people are more sensitive to it than others. It never has affected me, but if it does affect you, you can go to Atrantil. You can try it. It's lovemytummy.com. How'd you like that lead in, huh?
That was very nice segue.
I forgot all about that. Yeah, I own one more spot today. So, but yeah, Dr. Kenneth Brown, he does a show on here on Thursdays. I don't know if you've heard the Gut Check Project with he and Eric Rieger, but he's a fascinating man, and he calls himself a butt doctor because he does a lot of the scoping, so to speak. Anyway, he's realized that overall health really starts with the gut. It's mental health, physical health. A lot of your strength comes from whether or not you're able to digest food properly. So this basically is not a probiotic, which are the live
whatever they are.
Biological entities that help you stay healthy and digest food properly. And it's not a prebiotic really, which is that's the food to create the correct environment and for that flora to kind of to flourish. But it's kind of a balance between the two. It really just helps to correct the gut to have the right environment for you so that you don't have to take probiotics. Right. It flourishes on its own. So Atrantil, look, it's lovemytummy.com. I think if you go in, it's lovemytummy.com/Spoony. There's a discount, and it's greater than 10%. I don't know what it is, but it's a great product. If you have symptoms of celiac or any kind of sensitivity like that, it can really be effective. I'm not a doctor. I'm not prescribing it, but check it out. lovemytummy.com. Great guys. They're so funny. And they do a 2-hour live show here.
Oh, I have to catch that.
If you go to Spreaker, you can go to listen. Last Thursday, I was their victim. I mean, their guest. And what was interesting is we recorded it on a Sunday night. So I usually run the show for them on Thursdays, but they were traveling that Thursday to Vegas for a convention. So Eric's wife, I think her name is Michelle, was here. So I told her all she has to do is switch cameras. I said, here, just go back and forth. So I ran the first segment, the first 30 minutes, and then the last 3 I was in here, and it was really fun. These guys are they're serious, when it comes to their field of study. Yep. But they make it so fun. They found a website, and I need to look it up. I think it's called food pairing or ingredient pairing.com. It's this place out of the UK. that has developed this software that you often wonder, why does this pair with this so well? All right. Or if this has an opposing flavor, why does it pair with this so well? It actually comes down to the structure of the molecule of the food. And these items, they may have completely different flavors, but these food items or ingredients have a similar physical structure when it comes to the molecules. And so when you pair them, it's like, bam,
they bond.
Well, there's this, something happens in that pairing of flavors that it just becomes this indescribable, intangible feeling when you eat things. And so, and it's not about acidity. It's not about richness or fat content or salt content. It's molecular structure. That's the greatest factor. And so now it's allowing chefs to develop these meals. You can choose one thing, say venison, right? And you could say, okay, so you want to find a fruit that goes with that, but so maybe black currant comes along, and it's not because it's acidic and sweet, and it's just, it has something to do with the molecular structure. But now you'd think, okay, this big bold Cabernet goes well with that as well, right? That's how you're going to reduce that to make the sauce with the. But it's actually not because of the tannins, it's because of the molecular structure. It's fascinating, but it allows you to now start designing this perfect, not really the perfect meal, but these meals that really come together at a whole nother level as a chef than you can just put together by, visually and through olfactory senses. And it's fascinating. It really fascinating. I can't wait to spend some more time in there, but we developed a couple of items with that. And we played a funny game at the end, where Eric tried to stump us. He would ask Dr. Brown if, what do you think these culinary terms mean? 86 and, I need a butterfly. Yeah, I need a butterfly. What did he say? I need a 6-ounce fillet butterfly on the fly. So on and so forth. And then they asked me questions like, "What do you think this means?" Someone had a terrestrial discharge. What do you think that means? And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Somebody died in the hospital?
Aliens?
No, they died. They passed. It's terrestrial discharge." I was like, oh. Anyway, so they have all these. It was fun. They're great guys. If you haven't listened to the show, it's called the Gut Check Project. You can find them on Spreaker, on the Spoony channel. You can go to YouTube, go to our channel on YouTube, or you can go to I think it's the Gut Check Project. They're really funny, man. Those guys crack me up. They're worth listening to.
They're taking all of the things that we used to wonder why about, and they're answering those questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the word umami. It was a magical thing that nobody knew why or what.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody tried to describe it.
Yep.
Well, then they had to break it down and tell us what it was. And it's the fatty things in food that really fill that space right there. So it kind of took.
It's crazy. Umami's like this indescribable sixth flavor of.
And it was like a magic word.
Mm-hmm.
It was like something you couldn't put a label to, but then they went and put a label to it and took all the magic away. I was going to say it was love.
I still think, you know what? That's the magic ingredient, isn't it?
That's what I thought it was, because nobody knew it when it came out that's what it was. And to me, it was like.
Never find that on the label.
It's love of the food.
You should. You should. I would think if you're an artisan, you're really a craft producer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm serious. You want to market your product really well? First ingredient, love.
You argue with the USDA.
Yeah, screw them. No, hey, you know what, though? You can buy the software to print those labels yourselves. I mean, how often do they check? It's not like you have to submit them or anything.
No. Or that they come in twice a year to read them or anything. No.
I know. You know what? What's really, people don't realize how hard it is, or not how difficult it is, but everything you have to do to run a food service business, whether you're production, manufacturing, distribution, direct sales, restaurant, processing, it's a pain in the butt.
It is going to get harder for manufacturers too,
because
of the things that they're having to do because of the different recalls. So on manufacturers, it's going to be a lot harder for them.
So are they going to force everybody to have a HACCP plan in place, do you think?
Oh, it is already a thing, yes. There's not just that. There's 3 other regulations that they have. But our last inspector that came in told us that state inspector came in and told us that the next federal inspections, because you're inspected every 3 years by the feds, was going to be like an audit, that there are going to be 2 inspectors and they're going to spend 30 hours each at your place.
Well, I mean, so I had friends in California. Mama Lena Pasta was I talked about them last week. That's a big spiral freezer. This they made pizzas for Wolfgang Puck, but they had a pasta company as well. And then these huge extrusion machines that they mix the dough in, and they had like 50 different dyes they could make in. But they had, because they used meat fillings and dairy as filling in the ravioli and things like that, and they made their own sauces, which they froze. Because they had that, they had to have a USDA inspector there during all the time that they were in production.
And
you pay for that. And you pay for that, and they are not inexpensive. And they had a big facility. Their facility was probably 20,000 square feet, maybe more. So that's interesting. My business partner, that we were producing some shrimp products there. We had a under refrigeration, a shrimp cocktail, which had the cocktail sauce separate from the shrimp, and the shrimp were partially cooked, hand stacked in a peel back lid, plastic clear container, and then it was they were cooked under pressure. They were cooked in water, but just like they do the cans of crab, where you have to clamp them down so they don't pop. And it was a task. We were doing it there, and we were importing the shrimp from Ecuador, but it was shelf stable. I mean, it was stable under refrigeration for like 3.5 weeks. That's the way we did it.
Yeah.
But it was so arduous having them come in and inspect. And then you have the testing process where, you have to send it off to a laboratory to see what the bacterial growth curve is. And I really just talked about this all last week. So it's interesting that they're adding more regulation.
Yeah. And it's because of all the recalls that they've had. They're actually backing off of what they call the retail, because you're only selling to a couple individuals at one time. And if somebody got sick, it'd be one person. But this is where you're manufacturing, and you're going to affect 1,000 people at one time.
Yeah,
or 100,000 people.
But some of that stuff, I mean, like the recall they just had with Tyson, right? Look, at good, bad, or ugly, they're a big company. They're the biggest company in poultry. But part of that was about metal shaving, like metal contamination. But how could that even get through the because you have that magnetic metal detection system when it goes through. You send it through that once before it's packed, and then after it's packed in the single single carton phase, and then you don't send the master packs through because they're too big to detect all the metal in there. But I mean, how does it get through, especially in a company like Tyson, unless there's some sort of a breakdown?
Well, and it would be wearing out of machinery or something got out of whack, and so it's shaving something.
But that's also true. So those for those that don't know, I know I'm getting kind of technical here, and hopefully you're not bored to death and changing channels, but those things need to be calibrated every cycle. Like every time you use them, we always run it. There's a tool you run through there to.
I don't think people really realize everything that goes into this package of food that they have.
They don't.
It's a lot of work, a lot of technical stuff many times. And nowadays, kids don't even know where their meat comes from. They don't understand that this was a cow once, or this hamburger was a cow once. And it's kind of like we need to get back in touch. So the schools where we are have the farm to table program in the schools where they go out and they go to the farms, or they go to the gardens where stuff is grown.
That's
very
cool.
That's fabulous. And it just brings that to those kids, and someday they're going to be chefs. It's going to.
I hope so.
That food thought is going to be in their head.
Well, I hope so. And that's something we talk about: obesity and unhealthy status of the people in the United States. And I really believe we are so far removed. And anybody who listens knows I've said this since I started on the air with Doc. We are so far removed from our food sources. People don't realize how much effort it takes to put food on the table. If you've ever tried to sustain yourself, like literally sustain yourself or your family by growing your own food, vegetables and produce, and then having to, have you ever try to have to like harvest animals or take the life of a livestock to put food on the table? It's even when you get even as I got used to it, growing older and then becoming a chef and learning to butcher, it's still, you got to think about it. I mean, you're chasing a chicken around the yard that you're gonna take its life and you're gonna consume it.
Yes,
we're fairly close to doing that though. Our diet at home is wild game is the main things we consume. Lots of wild rice, huge garden. Our turkey season is 3 weeks away as we're sitting here now. And we can hunt. If you can hunt in Minnesota, we can walk out our back door, and chances are we can do that. Whether it's ducks, grouse, deer, bear, we have timber wolves running. We had 4 timber wolves come across the property on Friday morning.
Yeah, you tell me they've kind of decimated the rabbit population. Which
they decimate a lot of things. Yeah, they're pretty tough on the.
Are they controlling that population at all?
It's been a fight between the state and the federal government. Timber wolves have been on the endangered species list for many, many years. Fortunately, the state of Minnesota got control of it a number of years ago, and they actually had a couple of hunting seasons on them to try to control the numbers. The biggest thing was to put fear back into the timber wolf population. They would become a little too complacent with humans and hang around too close to the houses.
Much like coyotes do. I mean, you see coyotes running through the streets of LA all the time.
Timber wolves are too big to be getting to lose their fear of man. That can be
people that don't know. Timberwolves are a big animal.
Oh, they're well over 100 pounds.
Yeah, and they're waist high to a grown man, a little over waist high.
And you might run into 13 of them at a time.
That's the thing. It's not like there's one that's passing by as you're walking down the road. It's they're typically in a.
The biggest problem is that they had lost their fear. But
no, that's scary.
But then part of our diet again, we literally can hunt ducks, geese on the property, deer, and we process all of our own game and stuff. So it's just.
Well, and look, again, my family, my brother, my father were big. My brother hunts. He does rabbit trials, so he breeds beagles. Yes, I know some people think it's cruel, but he eats everything that he harvests. Sure. Everything they take, they eat. As a matter of fact, God, he's always got a freezer full of trout, brown trout, rainbow trout. It's crazy how much fish that guy had that my brother has in his freezer, and then he's got just as much or double the amount of game. I think I don't think he's missed a season of deer hunting since I was probably ever since I was a boy. And my father was the same way. We always had about 100 pounds of meat, wild game of some sort in the freezer. Everybody had a coffin freezer, and then you had the regular freezer, and then sometimes you had an extra fridge with a freezer. But yeah, that's the way I grew up, and we pickled anything we could not consume fresh during the season of the garden season, which my dad had like an acre garden. It was ridiculous how much food he grew. But we had 5 families on the road, so we would all kind of share whatever we had. But I remember seeing the house was my uncle's house before my father bought it from him when he passed. And it was his father's brother, and so it had this stone basement. It was actually big stones,
the
and that's
stones. That's what's in ours. Yeah,
and then they had built the home on top of that. When we first moved into that house, there was no running water inside. He had I think he had one tap in the kitchen, but we had an outhouse for like the first year and a half. And
I think
I talked that about in the wintertime.
I think everybody should have one of those first.
I think for just for a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You learn to appreciate indoor plumbing, I'll tell you. But so I remember my mom bathing me in the sink. I wasn't very old. My father was still alive. So, but I just remember being down there. So we had the big root cellar door, and the concrete steps going down, and but all those jars were lined up on shelves down there. I mean, some of them looked old and dusty. I remember we never chose from that shelf. We always went a couple shelves down. It was pretty funny. I was like, how can we never eat those? I mean, how old are they? They might have been there from my uncle, actually. Who knows? But
they're probably still edible.
Probably.
Push come to shove, you probably could have.
It's vinegar. I mean,
it's a tough way to find out. Though.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I wasn't about to try. I was little. I could feign. I just cry and go my room.
I'm not a canner. My mom was, and everybody else probably is, but I freeze our stuff mostly.
Freezing is a great way to keep it's a great way to keep the nutritional value too. So if you want to if you don't like buying fresh produce is tricky if you don't cook every day. And so frozen vegetables, actually, if you find the right ones that are high in fiber, green beans, for instance, hold a lot of their nutrition. Corn, what nutrition it does have, it holds it well. Brussels sprouts hold there as well.
And
a lot
I freeze peppers, and we freeze our tomatoes, and great. I mean, you just throw them in there, and then you make chili or pasta or whatever you want with them.
One of our new favorites is parsnips.
I love parsnips.
Leave them in the ground over winter, and another couple of weeks from now, last year's parsnips, all of a sudden the little green spot. Well,
I know, yes.
Go start digging, and it's like to be pulling something out of the garden that time of the year.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Such a treat, and they are so good after spending the winter in the ground.
They don't have that bitterness, right? They're sweeter.
They're sugar. They sugar in the ground when they freeze.
So parsnips are underrated. Pear and parsnip puree is one of my all-time favorite. Like mashes. Oh,
What we've
awesome
started
stuff.
playing, this is how sick our life is. We've started playing around with the coarse ground wild rice, the polenta. We now mix that in with parsnips, mix it in with
I love it.
With squash and some of that with potatoes. The russet's gone wild.
Russet's gone wild.
Yeah,
We've heard gone wild a couple times. I'm waiting for somebody to come in.
Not happening. Not happening.
No. I meant like Matlock or somebody like
I
that.
can see that.
One of the crazies
He's
around
one
here.
of those.
But it's just one of those.
I haven't been drinking yet. You're safe.
That's our entertainment. Well, wonder what happens if we mix it with this type of thing. So
it's more like a sickness, but okay, we'll call it entertainment.
I promised. All right, again, Lori J from Nostalgia Rice. Thank you so much for coming. If you haven't heard them before, you haven't tried their product, go to SpoonyWildRice.com. Put in promo code Spring10. Get 10% off your entire order. If you have any questions, feel free to contact them. Contact myself at info@Spoony.com. Chef Patrick at Spoony.com. Anyway, real quick, that whistle wood. How we make the whistle? All right, so you take it's like a 5-inch piece of wood. It's about you take a nice straight branch.
And you said it's ironwood.
Yeah, ironwood. It was called ironwood. I'll find out exactly. I'll call my brother.
We do have ironwood in Minnesota.
And it has to be kind of young, like late spring, early summer, before the bark really hardens. And so you cut a ring around the branch, that section, after you've cut that 5-inch section out, about 2 inches down from the top. And then you twist that piece off. And then you shave a portion of so you shave it flat, just like an eighth of an inch of it off, the entire length until you hit the rest of the bark.
Okay.
And then where you hit the bark, you go back about not quite a quarter of an inch, and you cut a notch about an eighth of an inch deep or a quarter of an inch deep. So you cut this triangular notch out, and then you cut a smaller notch in the bark that you slide back over. You put the bark back on, and you cut a smaller notch in it, and you blow through, and that's what makes the whistle
So
sound.
you made a reed, is what you did.
Basically, it's a reed. It doesn't vibrate, but it's the opposite of a reed, actually. If you cut the reed out. Anyway, hey folks, we're about out of time. I can't. Thank you so much for being
Thanks
here.
for having us.
Thanks for actually doing the food for the end of the show. The waffles were awesome. All right, hey folks, it's been a great show. Thanks for listening. Hope it was fun, informative, and man. Hope I didn't force you to drink or change channels. It was awesome.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Come back tomorrow. Lots of fun stuff. Randy White's in the house tomorrow. All right. Have a great day. Ciao for now. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
This is the only 24-hour